So in Benchmark, we are going to start Unit 8, which is Nature's Fury. And questions that you're going to ask yourself as you read through this is, how do Earth's natural processes impact our lives? Now, I skipped Unit 7 because this is Tornado Awareness Month, and some of nature's furies have to do with that. So I thought we would work in this one for the next few weeks. So I'm just going to skim through. This is the book, and I can't remember if I gave this to you or not, but for today's lesson, we're just going to do it online. So here are some questions I'd like you to think about in this unit. How do Earth's natural processes impact our lives? Down here, do we have a duty to help those affected by natural disasters? Why or why not? If so, what can we do to help? Also, are natural disasters a local problem or a global problem, and why? So things to think about. Okay, we're going to start the first story. I'm going to read this to you today. Shelter from the Storm. It's by Quentin Rivera Toro. And after reading this, we're going to review summarizing information from an article. And that is a skill we've talked about this year. So this is really review. And then when you are reading an article that is fiction, actually nonfiction, sorry, this is a true story, make sure you look at everything. You read it, you look at all of the pictures and the captions below, because that's very good information. So this is an article by Quentin Rivera Toro, and at the bottom there's a little bit more information about him. He's from Puerto Rico and he teaches at a college there. So here we go. On September 20th, 2017, Hurricane Maria hit our island of Puerto Rico. Days before the storm, my daughter and I made a trip to the market. The shelves were disordered and long lines of worried people wound through the store. We bought canned fruit and vegetables, rice, pasta, bottled water, candles, and batteries. Later, we secured our home against the storm. We nailed large pieces of plywood over all our windows. As we worked, I turned to my daughter and said, "This will keep Maria out. Our house will stand strong against the wind and rain, and it will keep us safe." "Okay," my daughter said in a hesitant voice that made me think she was not reassured. I wanted to say something that would give her courage, but anything I could think of would sound false and only reveal my own uncertainty. We finished our work in silence. That morning, the morning that Maria struck, howling winds and lashing rains battered our home. Through a crack in the plywood, we saw tree branches, street signs, stray articles of clothing flying down the streets. How were our neighbors doing? What was the storm doing to our town? There was no way to know from my view at the window. By noon, the noise outside was terrible, like a great screaming from the sky. My daughter whimpered in fear, and I held her tight. I was terrified myself. Only when evening came did the skies calm down. The next morning, we surveyed the damage. Water had blown into our house, soaking everything. Our backyard was littered with our neighbor's patio furniture. Our beautiful avocado tree had been uprooted. Its exposed roots dangled in the air like the legs of an insect trapped on its back. We slowly walked the streets of our town, taking in all the damage. Trees were stripped of leaves, cars were parked upside down, and fences had been ripped from the ground. Okay, over here, there's a caption, "A satellite image of Hurricane Maria over Puerto Rico." I don't know if you can kind of tell, but this is Cuba, and then Florida would be up in here. Okay, down here, the flooded streets of San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico. So you can kind of tell by just those images how bad it was. Okay, so let's think now about summarizing this article. So I've already kind of started it. So over here, the first and main idea of this article is Hurricane Maria hit the island of Puerto Rico on February 9, 2017. Okay, now remember, when you summarize, you try and put things in your own words. So I abbreviated. That's okay because we're summarizing it. Okay, so now the next thing. Days before the storm, my daughter and I made a trip to the market. Okay, basically in that paragraph, they are preparing, they're stocking up on necessary items. Okay, so then it goes into detail about what items, but we don't need that. We just want to summarize briefly. Okay, the next one. Later, we secured our home against the storm, and then it showed how they secured their home. So we can just put they secured their home. What to protect from the hurricane. Okay, now down here, this is really an part of the article where we can synthesize, and I'm not going to put it in there about summarizing it because it kind of fits in with securing their home, but it shows that they are a little bit worried. They're really nervous. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Okay, so we can go up here. The storm hits. The hurricane hits their area and is destructful. Destructful, I guess. I don't know if that's a word. Okay, and then it talks about kind of what's going on during the storm. The noises were terrible, sounds awful. We can also maybe add in there and scary, terrifying. That's also kind of fits in with synthesizing, but it really gives details about that. Okay, and the very last thing, the last paragraph talks about is after the storm, they walk outside to check out the damage from the storm. So we could put after the storm. I'll use his name this time. Quentin and his daughter go outside and see the damage. Okay, so basically that is a good summary of this article. We didn't have to put all the details, otherwise we would basically just be rewriting the article. So the next thing I'd like you to do is, since this is Tornado Awareness Month, is in Epic, I have assigned 8 books. So I would like you to go in there and pick one to read today. If you do I Survived, then you can read that over a couple days, because I think they're worth 2 points. But all of the books, no matter if it's a half pointer or the 2-pointer, they're all on AR. So once you're finished with them, go ahead and take the AR test.